Schizophreniacs of Reddit. What is it like to have schizophrenia? So, it is effing agony. At every stage of your life, it will make you suffer. I've very recently got on medication. Over the course of 2 years, I finally managed to find medication that worked very well. The side effects aren't that bad, at least compared to the medications before. Anyways, I think the worst part is that it will still cause you to act in ways that nobody will ever understand. You will fully believe things that are completely nonsensical. Paranoid episodes are horrific. Imagine feeling like everyone is trying to kill you. I mean that literally. I know that phrase gets tossed around a lot, but actually try and picture it for a second. Have you ever been running from someone you thought was out to get you? Literally picture that at every corner you see someone, that feeling comes. That feeling of fear is horrible, but it's made so much worse by how people react. My parents couldn't tell what I was feeling. I thought that if I told anyone about the hallucinations or the crazy conspiracies I thought were real, I would die. So I would hide when I started panicking. I would try to hide it, and my parents would make me panic so much more. The way that it cripples you socially is one of the worst elements of it to me. And that social isolation will just add more and more legitimacy to your delusions because nobody is there to tell you that it's crazy. I was always in a state of constant alertness because of stupid things I was afraid of. When I finally started coming out about it, I was met with tons of resistance and claims that I was lying. It really effing hurts to come out about your problems and get hate for it. The way it makes your head race too is just painful. Staying up all night thinking I was in danger, overthinking everything and everything, hearing things that aren't there and being convinced it was real. Then there's what they call delusions of grandeur, where you think you're powerful or genius or supernatural. These make you do crazy crap, often extremely dangerous things, and ungodly, embarrassing things later on in life. So, just a note for everyone out there, please, when somebody comes out about it, please be patient, don't panic, and accept that this is really happening. Schizophrenia is not just a thing in music and movies, it's a real thing in the world, and it really effing hurts. I'm sure I could explain this better if I took a little bit more time for it, but this is a really rough explanation. I'm getting a bit emotional about it, but yeah, it effing sucks. I've heard people say, I wish I was schizophrenic. Yes, I've actually heard people say that before, and it's the most insulting thing I've ever heard. Next story. It's fear. It's knowledge. You're not worried your friends are plotting to kill you. You know your friends are plotting to kill you. Even when you know you're having a delusional episode, you're still convinced the worst thing you could ever imagine is happening. There's no way to shake it. Next story. I will be so detached from reality that nothing feels real, and I'm always convinced that no one will be able to bring me back, and nobody is real. I see people that aren't there, we have conversations, I hear voices that aren't there sometimes. Some are nice and some are mean. I have a voice that just spews out racial slurs at everyone I look at. It's honestly hell to have because there is such a bad stigma. And everyone expects you to carry on during an episode, but you can't. It's almost impossible because you can't block things out or control what you believe. Next story. I have bipolar-type schizoaffective disorder. Here's what a normal day is like for me. Walking into a room and suddenly have the feeling of being in a horror movie. Horrible, creepy music playing in the background, the room darkens, goosebumps pop up all over your skin, your heart pounds so fast you think you might have a heart attack and die. You know they're coming. They're going to appear any minute and kill you, but you can't move. You're frozen. Minutes pass by feeling like hours. Finally, the lights go back to normal. The music stops playing, and the fear is immediately gone as reality hits you square in the face. You shake your head, shrug, and go get that cup of coffee you intended to get earlier. Another example, you're minding your own business. It's late at night and you're washing the dishes. You happen to glance for a second outside. The moon suddenly becomes larger than the planet. You stop washing the dishes. The moon becomes an eye. A big ugly eye, and it's staring at you. It's not blinking. It doesn't have eyelids. You open your mouth to scream, but then it's gone. Everything is as it was. Another, you're talking to your best friend. You're having a good time as you both catch up on what's happening in each other's lives. Suddenly she smiles at you and calls you a dirty, disgusting, filthy whore, and she never wants to see you again. You blink. You're confused. What? You scream? Your best friend looks at you even more bewildered than you are. I didn't say anything, your friend said. Another example, you walk down the street. There are a lot of people out today. Your insecurities increase with every step, and it feels like everyone is staring at you. You can hear them whispering about you. You turn to your partner that's beside you and express your desire to call the people who are talking about you out. Your partner looks at you unsure and says, "Babe, no one is talking about you." Then you're having sex with your partner. You're into it. You enjoy the pleasure. Then you hear them say, "I'm sorry," in a high-pitched little kid's voice that immediately turns you off. You choose not to say anything until after you both have finished, and when you ask your partner about it, they almost fall out of the bed in shock. They didn't say that at all. Or you're trying to sleep and finally close your eyes for the night. As soon as you close your eyes, though, you see the face of a clown mere millimeters from your face. He smiles menacingly, showing his fangs. You quickly open your eyes, but nothing is there. You sigh and close your eyes again, and the clown is there, so close to your face that you can see right into the fiery infernos where his pupils are supposed to be. You open your eyes again, angry that this is happening. It's only after 2 hours of trying to sleep does the clown finally disappear, and then you can rest. And everyone, that's only a few examples of real-life experiences that I've had to deal with firsthand. This crap is no joke. All of my hallucinations are effing scary, and I envy people who have delusions of grandeur or have pleasant hallucinations because at least theirs are enjoyable. My brain likes to make me live in an effing nightmare while I'm awake and then give me real nightmares when I'm asleep. I don't really get a break from scary crap. Next story. Most of the time, provided I follow my medication plan, it's not really that bad. Every now and then, though, something will break through the drugs, and I'll start seeing and hearing things, and I'll be unable to control my train of thought. Those moments are hell. Next story. Well, I don't have schizophrenia, but I do have psychosis. I am medicated, but some days it doesn't always work. My psychosis comes from my PTSD, depression, and anxiety. It has become increasingly difficult. I will mainly talk about my work experience, though. I work at a fast food place. A lot of times I will see a man outside the door/window, but for some reason, instead of getting ready for the normal introduction, I would be paralyzed in fear. It only lasts for a few moments before I go to the back and then I restock the cups. When I get back there, he is usually gone. Another problem I have is the headset. It usually always has the two-way on, so on windy days I can just hear the static wind in my ear constantly, and sometimes I will hear voices saying my name or singing. Next story. I didn't have hallucinations, but I had delusions. You think you've discovered something very important, and it's obvious that it's true. You're a skeptic, so you carefully analyze all of the evidence, looking for any potential bias on your part or alternate explanations for the phenomenon that you have discovered. Everything adds up. It all makes perfect sense, every time. Yet when you mention these things to other people, none of the people around you seem to come to the same conclusion as you. Sometimes they say, "I don't know why that happened, so what?" Sometimes they have a mundane explanation for how some pattern might have emerged. Yet, it's difficult to believe other people are really expressing what they think because the obvious thing you have observed is so obvious that it seems inconceivable that the people around you don't see it the way that you do. It's such an obvious thing that it seems more likely to you that everyone around you is lying when they say they don't agree with you. It seems more likely that they are actually conspiring to trick you in some way, because there must be some explanation for why they are claiming nothing extraordinary is going on. You would just ignore it and go on with your life, but it's not a trivial thing you've been noticing. If everyone was saying the sky is green and you saw it as blue, you could sit there and shrug and move on without it affecting your life. But the things everyone around you seems to be pretending to ignore are really important. The songs on the radio are always about what you did recently and contain veiled messages, sometimes threats. Other times reminders that you are always being watched 24/7. Other times, requests for help. The celebrities on TV and YouTube talk about you without saying your name. You're afraid to say something wrong or anything wrong or do anything wrong because you are convinced the people who watch you will punish you for making one wrong move, just as they always do. Sometimes you wonder if you're crazy, so you disobey the people who watch you. You go for a walk without checking the radio or TV to see if it's okay. Or maybe you decide to tell someone a government secret they communicated to you and asked you not to reveal. Then the people who watch you get angry, very angry. They play a song whose lyrics are, "One way or another, we're gonna find you. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you." Followed by "Only the Good Die Young," followed by "Jump" by Van Halen. You rack your brain for some other interpretation other than they are promising to torture and kill you in the future for your disobedience, and that your best option is to find a tall building and jump off. There doesn't seem to be any other way those songs could be played together in that order. Self-unaliving does seem to be the only way to avoid the inevitable torture. You always feel like you are on the verge of figuring it all out. You don't know why so many people, including celebrities, choose to obsess over you, or why everyone around you is in on it and lying about what they see. But you are always just so close to understanding why you were chosen and what everyone wants you to do. Somehow, you're going to save the world. You were warned of economic bubbles causing an economic collapse soon, and a violent revolution soon to follow. Do they want you to lead the revolution? Prevent it? What purpose could there be in locking you up in a psych ward every couple of weeks? What is the purpose in the threats or hiding messages in plain sight? Such uncertainty about some things, yet other things there is no doubt whatsoever. Then, for me, as quickly as I set it on, it goes away. Some things are just songs again. TV shows are just shows. Nobody cares about you anymore, much less wants to kill you. The notebooks you wrote your thoughts in are now easily identified as incomprehensible gibberish. You understand why everyone around you was worried and why they didn't reach the same conclusions, because only now you can see that you were illogical and delusional. You feel safe knowing nobody ever hurt you physically, and the family members who died all died of natural causes, as the doctor said, not assassinations. You feel embarrassed at your complete lack of sanity and ashamed for accusing people around you of lying and conspiring against you. You feel free, unmonitored. At long last, you have your sanity back. And yet, you know if you ever lose it again, you will be the last to know. So everyone, I've never downplayed schizophrenia or anything like that. I know it's not a good thing, and I know that it's not something you can just snap your fingers and it goes away, or you can just shake the person and say, hey, you're acting crazy, stop doing that. And they'll go, oh, okay. But this story really painted an excellent picture as to what it feels like. You just are so certain in what you believe. How could nobody else believe you? Like, it's true, I have the evidence, but nobody believes you. So then you just kind of spiral and go downwards further. And like OP said right there at the end, and yet you know, if you ever lose it again, you will be the last to know. It's a really tough thing to have, and I feel so sorry for all the people in this video who have it. But anyway, next story. Okay, so I'm a little late here, but I am a medically diagnosed schizophrenic, so I can answer this one. Me, I can't see blood or hear sudden loud pops, because when I do, I'm transported to a desert where my best friend is dying in my arms. I've never been in the military, and I don't know who the man in my arms is, but I know I care for him. I can't hear sudden loud noises like alarms because everyone in my head starts screaming. Shadowy hands come out of the walls and tell me to come with them because they'll make things better. Lizzie is a 9-year-old girl who stands in the corner of my room and relentlessly stares at me. I don't know if everyone I know is real or not. I once believed I could kill my fiancée and transport her soul into my head with the rest of my voices. Thankfully, I didn't try. Next story. I don't think it's as bad as others, but I still felt like I should share this anyway. I'm very aware that the things I hear and see aren't real, but when you hear the same thing on repeat for a long time, it tends to mess with your way of thinking. The voices are hushed and whisper things that I can't make sense of, but sometimes it gets so loud that I can't focus on anything and I feel detached. I remember the first thing I started hearing was the sound of a clock ticking, which has now gotten to the point of where I'm always watching the time and trying to make sense of my surroundings to try and keep myself from having an episode. My visual hallucinations aren't as bad. I tend to see figures moving around me or small things crawling on or around me. This, however, has gotten better. When I was in school, it would get so bad that I would end up scratching at my skin because I thought something was on me. I still get paranoid if I see something, because then I start to believe that it may be real, and I can't process what's happening around me. And this last one, I'm not even sure if this is part of the schizophrenia. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100% sure because it doesn't sound like other experiences, but I'll still mention it. My mind will come up with people and scenarios that aren't real, but I've seen them so much I begin thinking that the person is real, or that something actually happened. This one still causes problems for me because I can never really tell reality from fiction. I have trouble separating the two. I only noticed this when I would tell stories and people would tell me that it had never happened, or that that person didn't exist. I'm just thankful, though, that I don't have bad episodes, but I can sympathize with people who do, as I have had a few. Not sure if I'm even making sense now, but I just thought I would share. Next story. So, I have been diagnosed as having it as a teen. I don't remember it being any different, and frankly, I assume it was to get on some meds to counterbalance my ADHD. I love psychology, though. Reading the criteria to be schizophrenic, I don't think it lines up either. If anything, I think I'm borderline personality, but even then, I don't meet the requirements. The doctors I used to deal with, I assume, thought I was making up some of my life, and frankly, I could see how, but it was true. Statute of limitations hasn't passed. I never heard voices. I never saw people who weren't there. Next story. It's like a cycle of fear. Imagine your greatest fear in fearing that no matter what you do, no matter what anyone says, you know in your head and your heart that it will come to you, and it will. Now take that and imagine that feeling every single day. And even if you know it won't come, there's the itching feeling and that nerve inside that makes you feel like they're coming. I'm scared that cannibals are going to come and eat me slowly. I'm scared that doppelgangers are going to replace everyone I love with another. And in turn, I check everyone to make sure it is them. I check for scars, permanent markings, any voice changes. When I was 14, I saw a tall man outside my car window in the woods. He just stood there watching me, my movement. I didn't go outside for a year. If my mom wanted me to, I would have a panic attack. I haven't opened my room curtains since then. I don't hear voices anymore. I just have creepy and disturbing thoughts that don't belong to me. And I know they don't because I hear it in a different voice. Sometimes a deep man, sometimes a perky woman's voice. I felt that I was in a world being watched like a sitcom. I would hear a laughing track inside of my head and outside. I would say dumb things that many people will look at me for, but the laughing track will laugh. Many people don't really understand what it means, and I've been called crazy, weird, and an attention seeker for being scared. It's not something I would ever wish on a person. You feel numb and emotional. You feel nothing and everything. You feel like you always have to watch your back and you always have to be alert. It just hurts a lot. Next story. Not everything is bad. It used to be harder when I was medicated and thought of myself as sick. Like all things in life, perspective matters. My favorite quote from Joseph Campbell is, "The psychotic drowns in the same waters that the mystic swims with delight." So I have visual and audible hallucinations when my body is in a heightened state. Stress, sleep deprivation, racing thoughts. I can tell when it's happening, but that took years to learn to listen to my body enough to notice. Mild hallucinations, they are like an acid trip. The world is all wavy and the earth seems to breathe. Some days I can exist in this state for hours. Sometimes it just comes and goes. At night, I stare at the ceiling in total darkness and see waves and thunder crashing in a beautiful storm. There is a man made of shadows that is too tall. He lives in the dark corners of my world, and he used to scare me, but I've learned to embrace him as much as I have my other symptoms. I hear whispers sometimes and conversations that are jumbled. Once I heard the most beautiful song in the world coming from a flat phone. Once I saw lumbering shadow creatures like Cthulhu and the old gods walking across the horizon during a thunderstorm. I was in crisis mode at the time. I haven't spoken about most of this before. It was nice to reflect how my life has changed. So thank you for asking. Next story. I think describing it would take a whole book, a whole album, or a book of poems. I think maybe throwing out some of the statistics paints a better picture than I could with words. So, statistics on schizophrenics. 85% unemployment rate, 80 to 90% nicotine usage rate, 10 to 25 years shorter life expectancy, 20 to 40% will attempt to take their own life at least once, with about 5% actually doing it, 20% eventually do well, whatever that means, and 50% have lifelong impairment. Schizophrenia is ranked the third most disabling condition, behind quadriplegia and dementia, and ahead of blindness and paraplegia. So yeah, basically it's a debilitating disorder. The best TLDR description I can give is that it's like having someone follow you around, alternating between being horribly abusive, including telling you to take your own life, and very positive and encouraging you, to the points of inducing delusions of grandeur. The stigma surrounding it is also horrible. Almost all of us have to keep our diagnosis a secret, lest we face social ostracization, missed romantic opportunities, missed employment opportunities, and occasionally just straight-up abuse or ridicule. Next story. Well, it's awful. I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 19. It's been very hard to deal with all of this. I've had paranoid schizophrenia, and as the name says, I'm super paranoid, even on meds. I can barely leave the house because I think anyone will hurt me. I also feel like everyone's watching me. It's been 7 long, difficult years. I lost my friends. I gained a lot of weight due to meds. Next story. By the end of my dad's short 46 years, he was a shell of the human he used to be. Absolutely tormented by the voices in his head. He was drinking dollar store floor cleaner, believing it was cleaning his body of the NASA gas that was being pushed through his plumbing while he slept. When his body was found, his toilet was plugged with pine cones to prevent getting gassed to death every night and having to come back to life in a clone body every morning, he said. Poor guy. Sweetest man you would ever meet. Give you the shirt off of his back knowing he'd freeze to death without it. Yet, he had to suffer the way he did. As the song goes, only the good die young. Next story. I have schizophrenia, and the most overwhelming aspects are fear and isolation. I am terrified to even have my door unlocked for a few seconds, much less actually step outside of it. The only reason I go out of my house now is to go to my psychiatrist appointments, and it is hell. I want friends and interactions with people, but it's so exhausting and draining to have to make sure I'm showing the correct reaction to what you are saying on my face. To constantly trying to focus on you and your facial movements and words and ignore the voices. On the rare occasion that a person stops by, it takes me days to recover. If it weren't for my adult son, I seriously would have already taken my own life. Next story. As someone who has been successfully treated with medicine, I don't notice much of a difference from my life before. Without the medicine, every moment is suffering, questioning, walking on a razor's edge of, is what they say true? And I know it's just my condition, but I'm a relatively successful person for someone with this illness. Strong, serious, long-term relationship and a college degree, a job as a tax accountant, and no hospital visits since my first over 6 years ago. My first psychiatrist saved my life by giving it back. You hear a lot of horror stories when it comes to psychiatry and antipsychotic medications, but you don't often hear about the success stories. I'm here to say, for those of you who may be in an episode or may go through your first, it is possible to live a normal life with the caveat that it's tough to reach that point, and it could be luck of the draw as far as medication goes. So, OP has made a point that I haven't really thought about. It was touched on a little bit earlier in the video, but there can be success stories. It's not 100% totally debilitating, and I don't know everything about schizophrenia. I'm learning stuff and experiencing things from people's eyes and words through this video, but yeah, I guess you can have a success story, so that's good to hear at least. Anyway, next story. Well, for me, unless I'm having a psychotic episode, things are pretty normal aside from being suspicious of random conversations that I overhear, and I'm quite sure that even my closest friends are plotting something against me. Although, these are mild. While having a psychotic episode, things get crazy, very fast. It starts with 2 or 3 days with no sleep, and then you start feeling high. Every single word you hear somehow connects to this epic conspiracy that your brain creates. Sometimes you do some crazy mental gymnastics to keep the story going. Afterwards, you get sucked into it so much that you start to alienate yourself from the environment. Personally, I didn't have a proper night with my friends for over a year without feeling like something's going on in the background. The craziest thing is that at some point I realized just how far the delusions got, but you can't stop this snowball without medication, and most times therapy too. Next story. My ex and the father of my daughter is schizophrenic. I still have PTSD and deal with extreme anxiety, even though we have not been together for 5 years. We were together for 10 years, and for many years, I tried to be understanding when he had episodes, but they were mainly about me being unfaithful or people trying to hurt us. He would put the weirdest combination of things together to prove that I was cheating. For example, an old fast food receipt, a commercial on the TV, a stranger that we had encountered that day, and the windows and blinds being up or down could prove in his head that I was cheating. He would put all of them together in an elaborate story, using the dates, messages, and situations. But in reality, it made zero sense, and for many years, I honestly wanted to laugh and cry at the same time because it was comical that he was so out of touch with reality, but extremely disturbing. After so many years of being told people were trying to get into our home to hurt us, I began to develop drug-induced psychosis when we would party. I can no longer casually use party drugs with friends because I can't stop from going to a bad place. I've tried many times to make it stop, but I've just learned to accept that I can't partake. I could have dealt with it better if he wasn't also extremely violent, and a lot of the episodes being about me trying to hurt him. Next story. I know my case isn't that bad, so remember this isn't typical, but generally it's not too bad for me anymore. It used to be if enough things went wrong in a short period of time, I'd convince myself that everyone is in on it. I'm on some kind of crappy Truman Show, except the point is to make my life crap, and I'd close myself away in the house for a while. The hallucinations aren't bad for me though. The only voices I hear are from people close to me, and are always extremely nice and comforting. Visual hallucinations are extremely rare, and I know neither of them are real. Next story. I'm not encouraging anyone to try this, only to take this as anecdotal evidence from a random dumb stoner on the internet. So, I developed a psychosis which eventually led to complete disassociation for a very long time. The spiral downhill was killing me. I was on Depakote, Seroquel, gabapentin, and Klonopin over the course of 2 years. I was honestly dying from addiction and med side effects, getting skinnier and overall unhealthier. I eventually said F it out of a whim of feeling like the smallest poke can kill me, and I took shrooms. And it was hell. It was hectic. I felt like I was going insane and I wasn't going to come back. I was panicking walking across my property out of complete and primal fear. I had to grab onto something. I sat down and started breathing, and I focused on myself and felt my body, and eventually, it all started to go away. I passed out doing heavy square breathing techniques, and I woke up the next morning feeling refreshed and somewhat renewed. This was permanent. I thought this afterglow would only last a week or so, but no, it's still here, reminding me that I can control everything again, and that it all comes down to anxiety. It's all anxiety. The anxiety pushes the thoughts, and depending on your place and time, and especially alignment, governs how much you initially believe the delusions. I weirdly beat them, and I don't suggest anyone take the same path I did because I felt I honestly wasn't going to come back again, but it takes heart and courage to find your medicine. Find what's best for you and breathe it. Live it. Feel better that you have every right. Next story. It's questioning everything you think is real. I have been on numerous antipsychotics, antidepressants, anxiety meds, a mood stabilizer that at one point was at the dosage of 1,000 milligrams a day. For me, I cannot tell most of the time if what I'm seeing or hearing is real. I've suffered with this since I was around 12 years old. I'm 21 now. Not being able to eat your mom's cooking because you think she's trying to poison you. Not going out because the things you're seeing outside are planning to kill you. Not being able to work out if certain memories or feelings were real, or just a part of the psychosis. I now know that I will never be able to rid of my mental health issues. I also know that sometimes what I'm seeing or hearing isn't real. So when people keep telling me to ignore it because you know it's not real, that doesn't make it easier. Next story. I am not a complete schizophrenic, but I am on the spectrum. I've been diagnosed with schizoaffective, and oh boy, how can you even go about this? What brings me in on the schizo spectrum is the voices. I am talking with fictional characters, even as an adult, and their voices seem super real. They are loud. When I had depression, I couldn't rest probably at all because the voices would be so loud, and I could not control them at all, as well as pieces of music as if there was a big boombox inside of my head and I couldn't turn it off. I do think I have turned it into something positive, though. I write now, fantasy stories, and I get to talk and explore these characters on the page instead of only in my head. I have an ability to truly visualize and to see them, getting completely lost in their world. This of course happens for normal people as well, but what makes me different is that in the past, it happened to such an extreme, it was a hindrance in my life. I lost contact with the real world. My imagination, though, it seems to be an overdrive. And well, that can be a curse or a blessing depending on how you look at it. I do my best to turn it into a blessing and really appreciate how I am able to lose myself in books, movies, or music because most lose the ability to do so when they get older. Next story. I don't have it, but my mom does, I think. 7 years ago, when I was 12, she went crazy. The doctors, they diagnosed her with schizophrenia, delusions, and manic bipolar disorder. She was in denial. My whole life was ruined and torn apart. I stayed with her in a while she was at her worst. Then she became homeless and I was taken away from her. Now she seems normal. She hasn't had any episodes, but she's still really paranoid and makes me shut off my phone when we talk. Sometimes I doubt she's sick at all and wonder if all the crap she said was going okay was real. But then I remember the paperwork. She's in complete denial, and if I mention it, she will become insane and violent. Never took her meds. Never will. Makes me wonder how some of the people commenting started taking medication. Did I just get unlucky with someone who isn't going to accept their illness and try to treat it? Or is there some magic phrase or clicking moment that makes someone realize that they need to go see a doctor? Next story. My wife has PTSD. Not schizophrenia specifically, but she has had some psychosis as a part of her symptoms. One of her beliefs was that some black men, not sure if color of skin was meant or just their clothing, were out to get her and our children. One of the most bizarre situations was when she had a bad episode, and we were waiting in her psychiatrist's waiting room. She was convinced that our children were in danger. They were with my mother, so I offered to call them. So she spoke to them, and she was perfectly normal, just a normal conversation. But the very moment she gave me back the phone, she said, "We need to go find our children, they're in danger." I was very fortunate that none of the people close to her or caring for her were subject of her fears. Next story. Mine mainly manifests in hallucinations rather than paranoia. Sometimes only one sense, sometimes 3 or 4 at the same time. I've gotten pretty good at working around them, but the really sudden ones that take up more than one sense still leaves me looking like a crazy person. A few notable experiences I've had include, while swimming, pulling my arm back to do another stroke, I see crouched above me at the edge of the pool some sort of Lovecraft-esque monster covered in eyes. That was one of the first, more jarring ones that I've experienced, especially considering at the time I was learning to swim, and flailing in water only added to the panic and fear. A more recent one that included hearing, touch, and sight was seeing thousands upon thousands of black dots pouring down from where the walls met the ceilings, effectively trapping me in the room. I could hear the loud skittering noises of their legs and how they crawled all over me before starting to burrow under my skin, and the pain was so real it made me feel nauseous afterwards, even once the hallucinations had passed. Then sometimes they just plain don't make any sense or aren't possible, which is easier for me to register as a hallucination and ignore, like the strange person in full, realistic details I saw standing upside down on the ceiling during a class, or the person I bumped into at Whole Foods and seemingly scattered 7 to 8 large moths from their outfit. The person was supposedly real, but I'm hoping the moths were not. But there's been all kinds of experiences, some funny and some downright nightmare fuel, but I've been adjusting to them, learning to find details that I can use to convince my brain it's not real, and calming myself down if they trigger a panic attack or something. Next story. In a serious way, it's horrible. I have schizophrenia, a delusional disorder, but in a really low-level way, and I also have insomnia. I started with my problems when I was 15. My first episode was here. Also, my first sleep paralysis came around this age. It's like a lot of thoughts, though, going in my mind with every step, every move, every breath, sometimes. As I said, I have it in a low level. The schizophrenic episode comes every now and then, has a sporadic thing, they come with some activities. In resume, some things, movements, thoughts, etc., triggers my problem. But the other hand, my delusional disorder is a nightmare. Sometimes I have an episode in my house, how I prefer it, but some other times it happens in the middle of a class. I'm in college right now, or worse, when I'm with my girlfriend or friends. As for the insomnia, it came along with the sleep paralysis and the other two. Some sleeping pills should help. You would say because of the age when I started with these problems, I was a teenager with a lot of personal problems, I didn't have any idea of what I was supposed to do. I started taking pills 2 years ago. Now that I'm in college, I go to a psychiatrist and a therapist. This one is for some childhood traumas, and my roommate has to hide all of the dangerous stuff in the house. Next story. Keep in mind, there are different types of schizophrenia. Not everyone hears voices. Almost in most cases, schizophrenia comes with other personality disorders or other mental illnesses. I've got diagnosed with BPD, schizophrenia, and depression. Personally, I always feel like someone is following me, but I'm not able to walk a minute straight ahead without turning back and checking if somebody is following me. Walking through the train or bus to find a seat is horrible because I feel like everyone is watching me and laughing at me. Sometimes I'm aware that stuff is not real, but I'm still scared, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's real or not. I also have the feeling that everyone is just waiting for a perfect moment to betray me, but I have no idea when or how. A lot of stress and anxiety builds up if you got those moments every day. When I was young, I injured myself to reduce my stress, and nowadays, I smoke weed. I tried a lot of different antidepressants and similar meds, but nothing helped. Same for therapy. Didn't help me, even though I am about to start another therapist. And weed is not 100% better, but in my opinion, it's better than antidepressants. I'm smoking a bit on the evening, never more than 0.5 grams, which is enough for me to get high, and here in Germany, we usually mix it with tobacco. And it helped me to get a bit better through the day because I know I have something to be excited about, and it helps me come down. Next story. I've got a different experience than most of the other responses here. There are actually many types of schizophrenia, the most well-known type being paranoid schizophrenia, but I don't have that. I have schizoaffective disorder, which is basically a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Since this is about schizophrenia, I'll leave out the bipolar part, which is mostly under control through medication anyway. But the schizophrenic part of the schizoaffective disorder is that I have more diagnosed schizophrenia though, and not paranoid schizophrenia. With disorganized schizo, instead of paranoia or hallucinations, it's extremely difficult for me to find/think of words or follow ideas or clear my head. I can't read books anymore because I can't follow things at all without getting incredibly frustrated. I lose train of thought often when talking with friends or people in general, and have a hell of a time finding not just the right word, but getting into the ballpark where I can't think of a word or concept while in conversation with others. Then I had electroconvulsive treatment or shock therapy back in the mid-2000s, and it erased 95% of my memories from birth until a few weeks after the ECT's final treatments, and that really doesn't help the disorganized schizophrenia, believe me. On top of the brain lag, I now can't remember people, places, or even things when shown a picture of me with them. I've stopped looking at pictures from pre-ECT days, the before times as I call them, because the frustration, it often leads to tears. But I've been on meds since 1998 if I recall correctly, and I've got a relatively stable cocktail of meds now that I've been on for the past 15 years that keeps the bipolar stuff under control, and it helps with the disorganized schizophrenia stuff okay enough. My psychiatrist is getting on in years though, so I'm hoping that finding a new one that works magic as well as the current one isn't too hard of a chore. Next story. I am schizoaffective, so my prognosis is a bit better than straight up schizophrenia, but I have symptoms of schizophrenia. I have people talking to me or calling to me all the time, usually someone I know, like a boss, partner, etc., but sometimes voices I don't recognize. I sometimes respond, then I realize I'm hallucinating. Edit. I also see things, like deer or very long-legged dogs running in front of my car, cats darting in front of me, people walking around my apartment in my periphery. I also get paranoid delusions when under a lot of stress. If you ask me how I'm doing, that's enough to set it off. Why do you want to know? Are you keeping track of my answer every time you ask? Are you telling someone? You didn't ask me yesterday. What's so special about today? Are you trying to gather evidence to hospitalize me? Etc., etc., etc. Next story. I'd say it's pretty awful. I hate dealing with this hell every single day. Self-unaliving is something that comes up pretty often. I don't know if I'm just really unlucky or if it's common, but antipsychotic/antidepressant meds just don't work for me. So I'm constantly effed mentally. It makes me horrible to be around sometimes, but I have to suppress how I feel because I need my job. Imagine seeing the most horrid things and hearing whispers about you, but you have to hide it. I had to fake progress to leave the psych ward. I had to suppress hell itself because that place only made me hate life more. I have to tell everyone that it's not that bad. I just get a little odd sometimes. When I'm really thinking about blowing my brains out, I take 6 adult doses of sleeping meds, obviously not prescribed, just to maybe get sleep. I don't even know if I'm answering the question anymore, but thanks for the opportunity to vent. Next story. I was roommates with a couple once and the wife was schizophrenic. She was so very delusional. She thought she was worth an insane amount of money, but people were keeping it from her. Also, she thought she was the reincarnation of Sharon Tate or something like that. She also thought she was incredibly attractive and, well, she wasn't. She was when she was younger and still had a nice body, but her face was rough from years of drug abuse. Then she sometimes thought her husband was plotting to kill her and put her in a wood chipper. She became obsessed with me and thought that I was her son, but also that I was supposed to be with her sexually, and also that I was the reincarnation of Jim Morrison. She started trying really hard to seduce me while her husband was away. She seduced our previous roommate while her husband was gone. She did have a nice body, but she told everyone that our previous roommate S.A.'d her, and when stuff would go wrong, she'd blame it on the previous roommate, who'd been gone for a long time. Sometimes she would think he was sneaking around trying to get her. She legitimately thought she was better than everyone in every way. I begged her husband to help her get help, but he didn't believe she needed it, and he believed like half of her insane stories. It was very sad and frustrating. Then, after the second time I woke up to her trying to SA me, I barricaded my door at night. It didn't have a lock from where she broke the door down one day while I was at work, and I don't know whatever happened to her. And I knew she had a good body because once she came into my room with a stack of random mail and said they were papers proving that her and her husband were no longer married, so that her and I could be together. Then she dropped the sheet that she was wrapped in to reveal her nude body. Me, I had refused her advances by saying that I would never be with a married woman up until that point because I was trying to let her down gently. That whole situation made me want to scream. I need an adult. For a while, she honestly thought she was from outer space. Next story. One of the best things that has ever happened to me. That being said, I have never met another schizophrenic whose schizophrenia presents like mine, but mine is 75 to 80% positive. I was diagnosed as schizoaffective NOS back in 2012, after a year of psychosis, which spawned from a cross-country road trip where I forgave the man I hated most mentally, to which he replied, "You got it." He heard my thought, and then to walking around town with my dog off of a leash, communicating telepathically with him for 8 hours, where novel experiences would just occur. People bringing us food or water, myself interpreting which way to go by the sounds of the birds, and finally, the next day ended with me on top of a mountaintop overlooking Ojai, with no food, no water, and no sleep for 24 hours, and then being flown to CO and thrown into a psych ward. Then the voice in my head, it's always me. Good or bad, violent or pacifist, it's giving me insights more often than not on the subtle social situations at hand. It told me I would marry my fiancé 7 years ago, all the way back in Virginia, before we were ever even together, and now we've been together a year tomorrow, and engaged. Also, when I am extremely upset or angry, it calms me down, telling me not to lose myself in this moment. Sometimes it's not a voice, it's a specific scene played out in my mind to initiate some kind of brutal, primitive impulse. Sometimes when I cook dinner for my dad, I would envision the steak knife pushing through the skin, and then I would serve him his dinner and tell him, "You're welcome." That was the first year. Or it could be me in a red hatchback, under a bridge on a rainy night, looking at myself through the windshield with a double-barrel shotgun in my hands and watching it spatter across the back. I'm actually writing a book on my experience called "What If Jesus Were a Schizophrenic?" But thanks for the good question. And my response is probably rambling, but I am always so excited to get to share even a little bit of my story. Schizophrenia is not all bad. There is hope. If you meet me on the street, you would have no idea that I'm a schizophrenic, and I've been unmedicated for 3 years come August 1st. Okay, did we just hear the same story? I'm not trying to be judgy, but I really don't know how to make sense of that story. Is this person in an episode? They're unmedicated? It didn't really make a lot of sense. I really don't know how to decipher this one, but feel free to look into it if you guys want to. Maybe there's some cryptographers in our comment section, I don't know. But this was an informative video. This was a insightful video, a fun video. Maybe not fun, but I liked learning something new. But hopefully you guys did as well. Thank you all so much for watching the video. It means a lot. Have a great day, and bye-bye!